I never expected to find a waitress hiding leftover bread. What I discovered left me heartbroken the first time I saw her. She was bent low over a faded metal cart, her hands trembling as she slid crusty loaves into a brown paper bag. She looked around, eyes darting like a frightened bird. The evening shadows deepened, wrapping around her like a shroud. The chatter of diners faded, but my heart raced. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was cold. The air felt sharp on my cheeks. I thought I was just stopping in for a quick bite, to escape the chaos of my life. Instead, I stumbled upon something deeper, something that punched me right in the gut. The waitress's name was Clara, and the way she clutched that bag, it was like holding onto a piece of herself. For weeks, I'd seen her rushing between tables, carrying trays filled with steaming dishes, her smile bright, but her eyes shadowed with exhaustion. She was a single mother, I heard the regulars whisper. Her son, just 6, waiting at home, missing her warmth. The weight of her world settled heavily on her shoulders. I saw it in the way her back was hunched, in the way she soaked up every compliment like it was air. Her laughter was a soft, distant sound, barely holding its own against the cacophony of the restaurant. And then there was the food, a source of life, of warmth, of connection. The discarded bread was meant to be thrown away, but there she was, sliding it into her coat pocket like it was treasure. I felt the heat surging in my chest. What was she saving it for? My heart pounded. I wanted to reach out, to ask her why, but the words clogged in my throat. Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the silence. A plate broke on the floor, and everyone jumped. A gasp erupted from the crowd. My breath hitched. Clara's gaze snapped back towards the chaos, fear etched across her face. Did she think the broken plate could shatter her secrets? The restaurant buzzed with murmurs. I held my breath, afraid to move, afraid to miss what would happen next. Just then, she hurried to the kitchen, but not without casting one last glance at the bread bag cradled against her chest. It was a moment frozen in time. I could feel it unraveling. There was something raw and powerful in that look, desperation wrapped in determination. I felt as though I had torn the curtain aside and seen an open wound, raw and bleeding. What was hiding behind that mask of a hard-working waitress? What did that bread mean to her? I needed to know. As she slipped behind the kitchen door, my heart ached. Would I ever find the courage to ask her? Or would I remain just another spectator to her quiet struggle, another ghost in the shadows? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The next day, the skies hung low and gray, mirroring the heaviness in my heart. I wandered back to the restaurant, drawn by an invisible thread. I couldn't shake Clara from my mind, that fleeting glimpse into her secret life churning within me. The sound of laughter and clanking silverware filled the air, but I carried the weight of her hidden despair with me. As I stepped inside, I spotted Clara right away. She was at her usual station, refilling drinks, a smile plastered on her face, but it did little to illuminate the weariness etched into her features. I could hardly breathe, but I knew I had to say something, anything, to break through the barrier between us. Hey, Clara, I called softly, my voice barely cutting through the din. She turned, her eyes widening for a moment before quickly glancing away, as if she feared to let her vulnerability show. It was a small moment, but to me, it felt like stepping onto a tightrope, teetering between curiosity and fear. Yes, her voice was steady, but there was a tremor beneath. I saw you with the bread yesterday. I just wanted to see if you were okay. It was a gentle opening, but in my chest, the words brewed a tempest. She hesitated, her gaze faltering before she focused on me again. It's just, leftovers, you know. I take them home for my son. The swift dismissal cut deep. She was trying to shield herself, but the way her hands clenched around the tray spoke volumes. Is he hungry? My heart broke further at the thought. What kind of world was she fighting against? I wanted to embrace her pain, absorb it somehow, Remind her she wasn't alone. Clara's gaze fell to the ground, eyes glistening with unshed tears. Yes, okay. Just kids eat a lot, and I can't always afford enough. Her voice cracked, and I felt a jolt of helplessness rocket through me. This was a battle she was fighting alone, and I was just an observer. Before I could respond, a loud voice beckoned her away. Clara, table 5 needs more bread. One of the chefs shouted from the kitchen. She nodded and rushed off, leaving me standing there, helplessly rooted. As she slipped through the door, I felt a longing to follow her, to wrap my arms around her and promise that things would get better. But my feet remained planted. I was a bystander, caught in the tension brewing in her world. The day ambled on, and soon I saw her at a break. She sat in the corner, her hair cascading over her face as she chewed on a piece of bread, clearly stolen from the restaurant. As she savored each bite, her expression softened momentarily, and I dared to approach her table. Can we talk? I asked, my heart thundering. She looked up, eyes wide with surprise. It was as if she were being pulled from a dream. Slowly, she nodded. Okay, just for a minute. I want to help, I offered, desperate. Is there anything I can do? I mean, just my voice faltered. I care. For a tight moment, she searched my eyes, as if looking for some sign of sincerity. I held my breath, afraid to break the spell. Clara started, her voice a whisper, but the door swung open, and a couple entered, laughter spilling from their lips. She turned away, posture stiffening as she absorbed the sudden shift in atmosphere. I have to get back to work, she said, a tremor in her tone betraying the fragile facade she was trying to maintain. With a heavy heart, I stepped back. Clara, I wanted to say more, to break through the barricade of normalcy she had erected, but the moment slipped away like sand through my fingers. The rest of the night blurred into a haze. I couldn't shake the image of her guarded, yet vulnerable sitting there, untold stories swirling in the depths of her eyes. She was a mother, a fighter, yet there was still something deeper lurking beneath her surface that I yearned to understand. As the restaurant dimmed its lights, and the last diner settled their bill, I found myself lingering outside, waiting for her to emerge. When Clara finally stepped out, her shoulders drawn tight, and her gaze cast downward, I called out, Clara, wait. She paused, glancing over with a mix of trepidation and fatigue. My heart raced as I took a step closer, but just then, a husky voice interrupted from behind her, rough and angry. Where have you been? You were supposed to be home an hour ago. The voice was the very essence of a storm, raw and menacing. Clara flinched, the tension in her body coiling tighter. I stood dumbfounded as a man advanced towards her, anger radiating from his figure like fire. My heart lurched in that moment, realization dawning upon me. Who was this man? What role did he play in Clara's life? And would I be able to shield her from whatever storm was about to erupt? My intuition screamed for me to step in, to defend her against whatever darkness loomed in her life. Yet I found myself frozen, standing at the precipice of her fear, I in the lingering silence. The weight of their battle unleashed palpable tension, and I held my breath, drawn into the terrifying uncertainty of what would happen next. The stormy confrontation pulled me back from my thoughts with a jolt. Threads of disbelief weaved through my mind, unsettling and messy as the scene before me unfolded. Clara's tense expression knotted my stomach, and I felt a surge of protective instinct that battled against my own fear. Where have you been? You were supposed to be home an hour ago. The man's voice boomed again, reverberating with volatile energy that made the night air feel heavy and thick. Clara's hands fidgeted, twisting a stray strand of hair around her fingers as if it could somehow tether her to safety. I got caught up at work, she replied, a near whisper, her voice barely reaching the man. The softness of it sent daggers through me. Caught up, or just wasting time? His contempt dripped with every syllable, and I recognized the seeds of something deeper lurking beneath his anger. I wanted to intervene, to scream for him to back off, to find a way to protect Clara, but I was paralyzed by the intensity of the moment. She stood firmly despite her obvious fear, a delicate steel I hadn't noticed before. I was helping at the restaurant. She shot back, her voice shaky but determined, a tiny flicker of defiance igniting within her. Helping? He scoffed, taking a menacing step closer. You think they care about you? They're using you, like everyone else. The disdain in his voice hung in the air, palpable like a thick fog that enveloped us. The chaotic mix of emotions surged within me. My heart pounded, torn between the instinct to stride forward and stand by her side, and the ominous warning bells echoing in my head. Would he turn his anger on me too? Would it escalate further? In that split second, everything felt impossibly still. My hands clenched at my sides, the uncertainty crystallizing into a single thought. I couldn't let Clara face this alone. Before I could second-guess myself, I called out, "Hey, she is not just using anyone. You don't know the first thing about her." Clara's eyes widened in surprise, and I saw a flicker of hope briefly illuminate her fear. The man turned sharply, surprise flashing across his face, quickly replaced by contempt. "And who are you? Her little superhero? Mind your own business, kid." Ignoring the heat of his glare, I took a single step forward, fueled by the warmth of Clara's lingering presence and the fragile bond we had begun to form. "She is doing her best. You should be supporting her, not tearing her down." Clara's gaze moved between us, a silent plea fluttering in her eyes. "Stop, please," she uttered, trying to defuse the gathering tension. But the anger radiating from the man didn't dissipate. Instead, it seemed to swell, filling the air with a sense of inevitability. "Stop?" He barked, a short laugh that was both bitter and derisive. "Why should I? She doesn't deserve support. She'll screw up just like everyone else in her life. You can't save her." Each word struck like a whip, carving through the space between us. My heart sank at the cruel reality of his words, but even deeper was the sting of Clara's sorrow. She ached beneath the weight of his disdain, each blow hitting her like a physical strike. "Just go home, Clara," he demanded, his tone now a dangerous growl. "I'm done here." I watched as she inhaled sharply, her shoulders slumping as if under an unbearable weight. I need to work." Her voice wavered between protest and resignation, a heartbreaking echo of all the struggles she was facing. The man's face twisted in anger, and I felt a pulse of dread. I couldn't let this moment slip by. I stepped closer again, taking a risk that felt monumental. "You can't just treat her like this. She is trying to support her son, and she is doing the best she can. Don't talk back to me." He turned his focus to me, eyes blazing with fury. "You don't know anything." As much as I wanted to scream, to protect Clara, my heart sank with a nauseating realization. His anger was a dangerous animal, and I was bait. I could see that now, the way his body coiled like a spring, ready to explode. "Please," Clara whispered, and the despair in her voice wrapped around my heart, squeezing. The man noticed her change in demeanor, a flash of triumph creeping into his stance as he straightened. "If they care, why don't you ask them for help?" He laughed again, but now the sound was devoid of any warmth, cold and cruel. "I'd love to know how they respond." Her face drained of color, and I realized that, in some twisted way, he was right. I felt the air crackle with tension, the moment stretching precariously, both of us standing at the edge of this emotional chasm. It was a revelation that felt painfully true. "You don't always need to do it alone," I whispered, casting my gaze back to Clara, hoping that somehow my words could pierce the fog of despair. But before she could respond, the man took a step forward again, eyes narrowed. "Let us go, Clara. I'm done with this circus." She looked at me, a tumult of emotions swirling in her eyes: fear, vulnerability, gratitude, and a hint of something indescribable. And suddenly, it struck me like lightning. I was just a heartbeat away from losing her, not only to him, but to the harsh reality that enveloped her life. "Clara." My voice broke as I reached out, drawn by an urgent impulse I couldn't explain. "You don't have to go with him. Please, just stay right here." But in that moment, I watched in helpless horror as she hesitated, the weight of the decision crashing down on her. The world around us seemed to fade away, leaving just the three of us standing on the brink of an impossible choice. And then, sharply, she moved. "No, I won't let you do this anymore," Clara shouted, her voice ringing with a newfound power, a desperation that shocked even me. But as she took a step back from him, a crackling tension filled the air, and I felt my heart drop. In her defiance, I caught another glimpse of the person she could be: a fighter. Yet just as quickly, the visibility of her strength made the man's anger flare. "You think you can defy me?" he roared, his body taut like a rubber band ready to snap. My breaths quickened in the unsettling silence that followed. And I understood now, in the deepest corners of my heart, that things were about to come to a head. I clasped my hands tightly, as if my own resolve could anchor her, and I braced myself for whatever storm was about to break. "Clara, run!" I shouted unexpectedly, knowing the weight of that command could change everything. Yet the realization sank heavily as I executed the words into the night with fear and desperate hope. Clara's eyes locked onto mine, the echo of our connection reverberating in the space between us. But just as she made a move towards freedom, something wild ignited in the man's gaze, and I knew this wasn't over. The darkness swallowed us, and Clara stood caught between two worlds. I felt the unbearable pang of uncertainty pull at my soul. I wouldn't know who would emerge victorious from this battle, her fight for freedom or the suffocating grip of the man she was trying to escape. In that moment, everything hung precariously in the balance. The stillness that followed my shout felt like an eternity, each passing second thick with unspoken words and unmade decisions. I watched as Clara stilled, her breath caught in her throat, eyes darting between the confrontation playing out and the tempting pull of freedom I had offered. Would she choose to fight or flee? The man's fury was palpable, a living beast made more formidable by his towering presence. "You think you can just walk away from me?" he growled, his voice slicing through the silent night like a knife. "You belong to me, remember that." I felt a shiver crawl up my spine at his words. The possessiveness dripped from him like poison, tainting the air and threatening to suffocate any warmth or light that dared linger. Anger swelled inside me, fueled by the knowledge of how deep his entrapment went. Clara deserved more than this. Yet here they were, dancing on the edge of destruction, and I could do little but watch. "Don't listen to him, Clara," I shouted again, shaking off the chill and pushing through the knot in my throat. "You can break free. You're not alone." A flicker of recognition crossed her face, the warmth of my words finding their way into her tangled thoughts. But just as I felt the tide of hope rising, the man surged forward, and Clara flinched back, as if struck. It was an instinct, so human, teachings of self-preservation padding her retreat. As if sensing my fear, the man raised a hand threateningly. "You're embarrassing yourself," he spat out, a cruel smile twisting his lips. "You really think anyone will stand by you? You're nothing without me." At that moment, something shifted inside Clara. The defiance I had glimpsed moments before rekindled. "I'm not nothing. Not anymore," she declared, her voice steady. She stepped back from him, centering herself, and I could feel the gravitas of the moment pressing down on us both. "Clara, please," I stammered. I felt my pulse race as I reached out, hoping she could feel the unwavering support behind my words. "You're stronger than you realize. You're not what he says you are." But the man's anger was a roaring wildfire, fed by the recognition that his control was slipping. He stepped closer, fists clenched, a predator cornering prey. "You're gonna regret this, Clara. You'll be crawling back to me before dawn." And just like that, the threat of darkness came full circle, enclosing her once more in a world heavy with fear. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, caught in an exhausting cycle of shame and defiance. I caught my breath, grounding myself in the haphazard rhythm of life that pulsed in the moments before all could shatter. "Why do you let him dictate your worth?" I urged, my words like an anchor thrown against the tide. "Don't you see? You're worth fighting for." Her eyes shimmered, and I thought perhaps the words struck a chord. The air felt electric, as if our shared vulnerability had twisted the night into something surreal, begging for a change, for a moment of inspiration that might spark courage in the hearts of the weary. But as Clara opened her mouth to reply, the man lunged forward, violence erupting without warning. A hand caught her shoulder, a grip that seemed to brand her, anchoring her back towards him. My heart seized in panic, fear radiating into the night like a ripple that splintered through the delicate barrier of what I wished to protect. "No," I yelled, tearing forward instinctively. The small distance between us felt daunting, yet in that moment I felt a surge of determination surging through me. I was not going to let this man take her away. Let her go? I could feel Clara's fear pulse through the air, a tangible force that echoed my own desperation. I surged, fueled by a protective instinct that grew stronger by the second. Yet I was engulfed by helplessness as I saw how deeply ensnared she truly was. He turned, incredulous, a flurry of rage igniting in his eyes at my approach. "And you think you can save her? You're a kid. You don't know anything about her life." "Maybe I don't," I admitted loudly, "but I know enough to see that she deserves more than this. She is worth saving." In that instant, it was as if the world shifted. Clara's eyes locked into mine, the weight of unspoken hope passing between us. For a fraction of a heartbeat, she stepped back in resistance, and I sensed the power of her choice building within her. But reality came crashing back like thunder amid the calm. The man's grip tightened, his face moving closer to Clara's, twisted with rage as his dark intentions unfurled like smoke. My heart felt ready to explode, the tension clawing up my throat. Every instinct screamed at me to protect her, but I felt paralyzed by my own limitations. "Get away from her," I shouted once more, desperation coloring my voice. But the attack I feared was imminent, his rage turning sharper than ever as it homed in on her perceived defiance, a storm gathering on the horizon. Then, unexpectedly, Clara's voice rang out. "No, I'm not afraid of you." That spark of defiance had ignited a flame, pulling a barrier around her as she pushed against his hold. In the chaos of that moment, I saw something shift within her, a carving out of strength like a tree breaking through concrete. Just as I felt hope rising, the man shouted angrily, viciously, "Get back here." And before I could blink, Clara staggered, her footing faltering beneath her defiance. I instinctively lunged, desperate to reach her, but it was too late. There was a flash of movement, a sudden violent twist, and then the world erupted in chaos as a blur of motion collided. I felt a sickening lurch in my stomach, darkness closing in, and then all went silent. I darted forward in a daze, my heart racing with dread. Had I just witnessed everything I feared unfolding? The man's fury, her defiance, the tragic culmination of it all? Everything shattered in that fleeting moment, my heart, my hope, and perhaps even Clara's future. As the night wrapped around us in its grim embrace, the chilling reality of what could await her sank into my bones. I was left standing at the edge of an emotional cliff, the turbulent storm of confusion and dread swirling viciously as chaos settled over the night. And above all, I held the haunting realization that things had irrevocably changed. The stillness in the air was deceptive, a veneer that cracked and splintered under the weight of what had just transpired. I stood there, my heart hammering in my chest, ears ringing with the aftermath of shattered words and violent exchanges. Clara's fierce declaration echoed in my mind, but the image of her struggle played out in agonizing clarity. My thoughts spun wildly as I fought to process the enormity of the moment. I took a hesitant step forward, reluctant to break the fragile silence that settled over the scene. The man loomed like a dark shadow, but Clara was no longer in his grasp. Despite only the briefest flutter of defiance showing in her eyes, it felt monumental. Yet around us, everything else felt hollow, as if the air itself mourned the distance created between us. "Clara?" I called softly, my voice trembling as I fumbled for anything to anchor my racing heart. There was no response, only the soft rustle of leaves above us and the distant murmur of the world oblivious to our anguish. My pulse quickened as I took another step forward, desperation clawing at my gut, but the man turned sharply, seething with resentment. "You've made a big mistake," he growled, his voice low and rumbling like distant thunder. "You think this is over? You have no idea what you're getting into." His eyes darted between Clara and me, assessing, calculating as if he could devour us both with that predatory gaze. "Leave her alone," I shouted, the fear in my voice emboldened by the protective instincts surging through me. I wanted to take Clara's hand, to stand shoulder to shoulder, and confront this looming darkness together, but she was lost somewhere in the crosshairs of terror and an awakening spirit. She stood stiffly, her expression unreadable, and I sensed a storm raging within her. This was not the girl who had cowered before him. This was someone forged in the fires of resilience. "You don't own me," she said slowly, as if testing the words against her tongue. The man's face twisted with anger, fury bubbling over as he unleashed an onslaught of venomous words. "You think you're free? Who will want you now? You're mine, Clara. No one else will have you. Not after me." Each word thudded against me, a brutal reminder of just how deep his claws had sunk into her psyche. But Clara held her stance, trembling but upright. "You don't get to define me anymore. I'll find my way, even if it scares me." There was terror woven into her defiance, uncertainty brewing beneath the surface, and I wanted to reach out and pull her close, to remind her that we were in this together despite the suffocating fear and doubts encircling us. But before I could respond, the man lunged again, his expression enraged yet desperate, like a wounded beast fighting for its life. "Enough!" I yelled again, stepping between them instinctively, a shield against the storm. Just as he prepared to retaliate, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A passing car, its headlights cutting through the darkness, illuminating the scene with an urgent glow. The man froze as he saw the headlights approach, realizing the potential for witnesses. For one fleeting moment, fear overtook rage, and he glanced uncertainly at Clara, as if weighing his options. I seized this chance, my heart soaring with the possibilities, and urged Clara forward beside me, anxiety pushing me toward the glint of erratic hope. "Let us go," I murmured urgently, grabbing her elbow as we stepped back toward the flickering light. But as soon as I turned toward the road, that shining beacon of escape, I felt her freeze. "Wait," she whispered, and I looked back to see her torn expression. "I can't just leave, not yet. Clara, please," I begged, panic surging within me. "We can get help. We need to get away from him." But she shook her head, lips pressed tightly together, battling with her inner turmoil. "I don't want to run forever, hiding from my past. I need to confront it. I need to confront him." In that moment, I felt the air evaporate between us, the distance expanding back into a chasm that had grown roots deep in fear, self-doubt, and longing for resolution. Her words hung heavy in the night, wresting the breath from my lungs. "You don't know who he really is," she continued, her voice trembling. What if there is something I have to reclaim?" A sudden chill washed over me, fear weaving through the strands of her words, intertwining with the threads of my own desperation. I wanted to scream for her to run, to leave this darkness behind, yet the raw truth buried inside her plea made my heart ache. Clara had not just been a victim, but now stood on the precipice of taking back her power. As her gaze settled on the man, the determination that bled from her was almost palpable, a defiant light flickering where shadows once ruled. My heart clutched painfully in my chest, wanting more than anything to protect her, but knowing now it was a journey she had to undertake alone, no matter how heart-wrenching it felt. "Clara, please don't," I said, desperate for any flicker of doubt to pass her eyes and guide her back to safety. "You don't have to do this." But she steadied, eyes blazing with resolve, seemingly unaware of my anguish. Just as the man shifted slightly, preparing to provoke her anew, a low rumble rolled in from the distance, an unmistakable growl of thunder that warned of impending rain. The dark clouds overhead quivered, deepening the shadows surrounding us. And then her eyes caught mine with an intensity that stole the breath from my lungs. "I must face him," she whispered finally, the calm declaration pouring into the air like a soft balm to my fraying nerves. "I cannot be afraid anymore." Before I could argue, before I could pull her back, she stepped forward. That singular act pushed my heart down into despair, as if I were watching her take a plunge into profound unknowns. She was determined to face the very storm that had once engulfed her, but it terrified me, the thought of losing her and what this confrontation could lead to. "Clara," I choked out, feeling the swell of emotions welling as I tilted my head toward the dark figure still lurking behind her. I couldn't shake the dread curling like serpents in my stomach. But she raised one hand, silencing me with a look that spoke only of courage and the bittersweet burden of choice. I watched Clara step toward the man. I felt my heart erratically drum against my ribs, a prayer for her safety lost in the wind of uncertainty. The world felt impossibly heavy and light all at once, as if our collective fears and hopes now gravitated around the three of us, one victim, one predator, and one desperate protector. It was then, under the impending storm swirling above us, that I understood. Clara was not just confronting her past. She was taking her first step toward writing her own future. But when the man smiled wickedly, the calm before the tempest shattered, thrusting me into imminent dread for what would come next. As thunder crashed overhead, a startling realization dawned upon me. Even as Clara faced her darkness, I was helplessly spiraling into my own shadow, the depth of my feelings threatening to swallow me whole. And as the storm broke above, I braced for the tumult ahead, knowing that whatever happened next would leave indelible marks on our hearts. The downpour began as a relentless torrent, pounding against the earth with a ferocity that mirrored the war raging within me. I stood frozen, my breath hitching as the scene unfurled before me. The man's malevolent smile, Clara's unwavering resolve, it all felt impossibly surreal. Beneath the deluge, my thoughts scrambled in chaos, every potential outcome flashing in my mind like a strobe light, each one darker than the last. "Clara," I called out desperately, my voice almost swallowed by the storm. But her gaze was locked onto the man, a potent mix of defiance and fear swirling in her large, expressive eyes. As if she were drawing strength from the tempest itself, she stood firm, each droplet cascading down her face, painting her as both fragile and fierce. The man took a step toward her, his movements predatory, a wolf approaching the lamb. "You think you're brave?" he taunted, the sinister edge in his voice smooth as honey but coated with venom. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. You think you can confront me? You don't even know where the truth lies." The thunder crashed once more, resonating with the intensity of his words. Clara flinched slightly, but it was less from fear and more from the weight of an unyielding choice brewing within her. "I know enough," she replied, each word spilling forth like hidden treasures finally unveiled. "I know that I am no longer your property." His laughter was dark and hollow, a sound that sent shivers racing across my skin. "Property? You think I ever saw you that way? You were my bridge to power, my means to an end. And when you broke, you took part of me with you." Every word was a strike, reverberating through the fragility of her newfound strength, and I could see the moment doubt crept into her resolve. I fought against the instinct to rush in, to defend her against the slashing words. Instead, I was a spectator in her battle, longing to dispense comfort, but fearing I would only stand as a reminder of the past torment that clung to her like cobwebs. She swallowed hard, shoulders trembling under the weight of confrontation, but unwilling to yield. "I refuse to be a pawn in your games. Not anymore." Before I could mentally prepare, the man lunged forward, a sharp movement cloaked in darkness. But Clara met his advance. She didn't flinch, didn't step back. Instead, she stood her ground, and I felt a surge of adoration and terror for her all at once. The rain pelted down, but I focused on Clara, clinging to the fraying thread of hope that perhaps she could emerge from this grotesque dance of shadows iniquitously stronger. The world around us felt distant, obscured beneath the sheets of rain that blurred the lines of reality. And then, an unexpected voice broke through the cacophony of the storm. "Stop!" It was a hesitant yet firm shout from behind me, startling me from my thoughts. I whipped around to see a figure stepping out from the shadows of the nearby trees, a young woman drenched and shivering, her eyes wide with apprehension. "You can't hurt her." All at once, the gravity of the moment shifted. The man paused, visibly thrown, his facade cracking for a mere second. "And who are you?" he spat, his tone laced with contempt. I'm just a waitress." She took a stealing breath, summoning every ounce of courage. "But I saw what you did to Clara. You don't get to bully her anymore." Something in the depths of Clara's eyes flickered recognition, perhaps. The rise of solidarity that had been so suppressed began to stir within her. The woman stepped further into the light, revealing the remnants of emotion that raw humanity could sow even amidst a storm of chaos. "Why should I listen to you?" The man scoffed, his bravado faintly challenged by this unexpected intruder. "Because you can't hold power over someone who finds allies," she replied, her voice emboldened, sending tremors of hope through the air. "You might have tried to strip Clara of her strength, but there are people who care about her. She is not alone." Those simple words trickled between us, a guiding light piercing through the tumult of night. I felt a surge of gratitude toward this stranger, a waitress, one I'd never met, who chose in that moment to confront the storm alongside Clara, to share her light in the darkest of circumstances. The man's reaction was swift, his anger igniting like a firecracker. "Why don't you just go away? Your little speech might work on naive children, but Clara is mine." A wave of fury crashed over him, yet for a fleeting heartbeat, doubt lingered in the storm-tossed air that I took advantage of the moment, my heart racing anew. Clara, don't be afraid. You have a choice. Remember, you're not fighting this battle alone anymore. She glanced at me, her expression wavering as the realization sank in. The words spoken had not formed a completed truth, but rather a promise bridging us, whispering of connections that would fortify her resolve. The man's eyes darted between Clara and the waitress, watching as they ignited a spark of camaraderie. Rage morphed into fear, and uncertainty clung to his features. While Clara stood with newfound purpose, two hearts filled with courage against the darkness, I felt the chains that had bound her for so long beginning to crack. But just as hope began to unfurl its delicate wings, a gut-wrenching sound echoed above us, a jagged crack of thunder that resembled something far more dreadful than the weather. "Foolish girl," the man spat, his anger reforming into something sharper, more dangerous. "I'll show you what it means to anger me." In that moment, Clara stepped back towards me, uncertainty cutting through her boldness, and I instinctively grasped her hand, feeling the tremor of her pulse as we both prepared for the storm that loomed on the horizon. But as I looked back at the waitress, brave and shivering, the air thickened, like a warning, and with one last twisting revelation, I realized that the storm was only a whisper compared to the tempest yet to unfold. "We might all have to pay," I murmured, feeling the weight of foreboding settle over us. The man had birthed a void, and the question lingered heavily. When the darkness descended, would the light around us be enough to drive it back? And just like that, an echo of uncertainty turned my heart cold as I held Clara's hand tightly, knowing that within the heart of storm and rain, it was only a matter of time before the real confrontation began. The rain continued its relentless assault, each drop heavy with the weight of despair, yet somehow emboldened by the small flicker of hope ignited by the waitress's intrusion. As I stood there, hand entwined with Clara's, the storm felt more ominous, the clouds swirling in a churning fury that matched the torment within. The man's laughter was a jagged sound, breaking the brief moment of solidarity that had formed. "You think you can rally against me with a broken girl and a waitress? You couldn't be more mistaken." His venomous words sliced through the air like a knife, each syllable aimed to dismantle the fragile strength that Clara had uncovered. "Just a waitress?" The young woman shot back, her voice trembling but fierce. "You underestimate the power of anyone willing to stand up for the truth. Clara deserves to be free from your grasp. She is not just a pawn. She is a person with a heart, with a story." As she spoke, I could see the tiniest shift in Clara's demeanor, her chin lifted slightly, the flicker of resilience sparking in her eyes, as if the waitress's words were a balm to her wounded spirit. But the storm was growing, and so was the man's fury. "Your story? Your heart? They mean nothing to me," he retorted, looming closer. "You've both made a grave mistake. I will erase anyone who dares to challenge my will." Clara squeezed my hand tighter, her warmth momentarily dulling the icy fear creeping through me. "I'd rather fight for my story than let you erase it," she declared, her voice suddenly stronger, more assured. "You can't take what I am away from me." The waitress nodded vigorously, emboldening Clara further. "Yes, don't let him intimidate you. We're with you. You're not battling this alone anymore. It may have felt that way for too long, but that ends now." For a heartbeat, the rain seemed to soften, as if it held its breath, awaiting the confrontation. The man took a step back, the confidence on his face wavering. The tremors of doubt threatened to crack his facade, and in that moment, I knew that fear could be as powerful a weapon as anger, but the calm was fleeting. In a flash, he lunged toward the waitress. "You think your mediocre courage can stand against the storm I bring? You're going to regret this." A surge of instinct propelled me forward, pulling Clara along for the ride. "No," I shouted, positioning myself in front of her as if I could shield her from the darkness embodied in that man. I'd never felt such a primal need to protect anyone before, to be the barrier against hate for someone so deserving of love and freedom. The waitress held her ground, arms outstretched, defiance woven through every fiber of her being. "You'll have to go through me," she declared, her voice a mixture of fear and bravery. But even as she spoke those words, I could see the underlying tremor of uncertainty that rippled through her. It was a flicker of humanity that resonated deeply, a reminder that even the bravest among us were often haunted by doubts. The man's fury struck out like lightning, his rage powerful and unapologetic. Yet Clara did not cower. She pushed past me, stepping forward more daringly as she faced him. "You don't scare me anymore," she said, voice resolute. "You defined my life for too long, and I'm done letting you live rent-free in my mind." There was a stirring in the air as her words settled over us, a collective intake of breath amidst the storm. In a blinding clash of wills, she was no longer that fragile girl, but a warrior risen from the ashes of her turmoil. Encouraged, the waitress quickly added, "And you're not the monster you think you are. You have a choice to be better, to let go of your anger." That struck him hard, breaking through the walls he had built around himself. For a fraction longer than a heartbeat, his expression faltered, revealing a mixture of confusion and pain. It was an inkling, a smidgen of the boy he once might have been, hidden beneath the weight of desire and arrogance. But it passed as quickly as it surfaced, fury returning to his eyes like a fiery phoenix. "This is foolishness," he spat, shaking his head as if to shake off doubt. "You think you can change me? You will pay. How dare you defy me?" As thunder roared overhead, a spark of fear ignited in me, a knot tightening in my stomach. I looked into Clara's eyes, a swirl of determination and emotion swirling within. In that moment, we shared an unspoken understanding that the battle might escalate, that we would need to weather the storm together. But with sudden clarity, I realized a terrifying truth. We were not prepared for what this man was about to unleash. The chaos around us was a mere prelude to the real tempest brewing, a confrontation not only of wills, but of bitter souls intertwined in an unforgiving, tangled past. Before I could warn Clara, or even process my rising fear, something unexpected happened. The waitress raised her arms and summoned all her courage into a single plea. "Stop. Don't you see what you're doing? You're only perpetuating a cycle of pain. Let go of this. You hold the power to change, to be better." And in that singular, heart-stopping moment, as raindrops mingled with tears of despair, we all sensed it. The storm was no longer just above us. It seeped into our very beings, an impending reckoning. Then, with a fierce crack that silenced the air itself, reality shifted. The ground beneath us shuddered, trees swayed, and a blinding bolt lit up the sky, crashing down far too close. I flinched, instinctively wrapping my arms around Clara, pulling her close, shielding her. But it wasn't just the might of nature that struck. There was a fissure of raw truth in that moment, a ripping revelation that left my heart pounding erratically. For in the ruins of that chaos, something more profound stirred, a secret long buried resurfacing amidst the storm. "I'll show you the truth about who you really are," the man hissed, a ravenous hunger set in his gaze as he turned to me, his laughter morphing into something sinister. And just like that, the weight of hidden histories bore down like the relentless rain, foreshadowing the storm I never saw coming. The revelation that I was somehow a part of this twisted dance, a connection I could not ignore, bound up in a truth more devastating than I had ever imagined. The storm's clamor faded into a distant hum as the man's words sliced through the air, sharp and menacing, deepening the fissure that threatened to tear through our fragile sanctuary. "A part of this twisted dance," he echoed, smirking at my bewildered expression, the flickering light of the storm casting his face in eerie shadows. "You don't even know, do you?" Clara flinched, and my instinct to protect her surged again. But this time, it felt a bit like a chokehold, not just on him but on the very air around us. I desperately searched her eyes for any semblance of reassurance, some validation amidst the chaos, but found only confusion and fear. The waitress stood defiant, but even her fortitude seemed to tremble under the weight of this revelation. "What do you mean?" I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. There was an urgency behind my question, a push against the tide threatening to drown us all. Shadows moved behind the man, as if he were a puppet master, orchestrating chaos from the depths of some darkened past. His laughter echoed around us, a chiming mockery of our struggle for freedom. "You think you can shatter my control? You, who have barely scratched the surface of your own reality. You have no idea how deep our paths intertwine, the bloodlines that connect us, the choices that led us here." Clara's grip on my hand faltered. "Bloodlines?" she whispered, her voice almost lost amidst the clashing torrents. "What are you talking about?" I held my breath as uncertainty swirled between us, feelings of being trapped merged with a flicker of uncertainty, the kind that promises revelation but feels like a bitter betrayal. Your past is the key, dear Clara, he hissed, eyes gleaming with an unsettling satisfaction. And your friend here, he's at the heart of it. You don't even know that he is tethered to your story. My mind raced, heart thudding painfully in my chest, each beat a reminder of the unpredictability of the moment. Could he be right? I felt so many things crashing together, the slow, aching realization that shadows of my own past were creeping closer, weaving around Clara's life like the storm that now quelled to a reluctant drizzle. Enough, I shouted, my voice cutting through the thick tension. You're lying. It can't be true. Yet the disbelief felt thin, paper-like against the unexpected weight of curiosity threatening to grip me. His smile widened, that sickening glee limping forth like a predator who has cornered its prey. Come now, no need to be afraid. The truth has a rather mundane way of unearthing itself. The connections you've both tried so hard to evade its time. I might just free you from your shackles, but you'll have to face what you've hidden from. Clara's breathing quickened, hinting at the bomb of uncertainty ready to detonate within her. What do you know about my past? Her words were both a challenge and a plea, a bridge across an invisible chasm threatening to swallow us whole. The man took a step closer, leaning in as the flickers of lightning grew bolder, tracing lines in the sky. More than you could imagine, he whispered, each word wrapping around us like a chain. Just imagine a world where choices weren't just choices, but paths laid by blood. A blinding flash illuminated his face, revealing the raw edges of rage and sorrow, the depths of a life etched with unspoken narratives and regret. Something shifted within me, piquing an age-old curiosity as doubt lingered like a pre-dawn mist. Was there a stronger connection between us than I had ever realized? But even as the whirlpool of possibilities threatened to drag me under, I couldn't allow myself to believe him. No, I breathed, stepping forward as if to shield Clara from the truth, threatening to shatter her newfound resolve. You think your twisted perspective owns our past? You have no power here. But the man laughed again, an unnerving melody that echoed through the remnants of the storm, fusing with the air around us. But the thread is already woven. It's time to pull at it, unravel what you've so carefully buried. Lightning crashed, a brilliant flash that momentarily lit up the entire sky, and in that moment, I caught the waitress's gaze. She was breathing heavily, both fear and determination etched into her features. We can't let him control this narrative. You both deserve to define your own paths, not enough. He barked, cutting her off with the casualness of a master. She's right. This narrative needs defining, and I hold the ink. In one swift motion, he pulled something from beneath his jacket, a small object glinting ominously in the fading light. The sight struck a chord of terror through me, a telltale sign that this man wasn't just full of bluster. He had the capability to unleash devastation beyond visions of grandeur. The waitress, sensing the threat, stepped forward instinctively, yet misgivings gnawed at the base of my heart. Don't, I called out, desperation coloring my voice. Stay back. But she stopped, determination replacing the crack of uncertainty flitting across her face. We can't live in fear. We have to confront this, whatever it is. I felt Clara's pulse rapid in my clasp, the weight of her terror evident beneath my fingertips. Our connection had become a fragile thread in that storm, a tether of hope amidst the haunting shadows. Leave her out of this, I shouted, rage mixing with sorrow. This is between you and us. Yes, he replied, a glint of sadistic pleasure dancing in his eyes. But you see, your lives are entangled, tied up in this grotesque love letter written in anguish. It's what makes this so painfully beautiful. The rain softened, but it wasn't cleansing. It was pregnant with foreboding. Clara and I stood together, shaking yet alive with the embers of a battle clearly were building around us. Uncertainty thus tightening its grip. Then came the sudden realization, an opening deeper than mere fears, a truth so monstrous it begged to consume us whole. Clara, I said, my voice heavy with the weight of what was to come, my mind racing to decode the animosity brewing within us. But even as I reached for words to unravel this intricate tapestry that seemed woven by our histories, a violent gust swept through the remnants of the storm, extinguishing the last unsure tones from the face of the man standing before us. "Let me show you," he offered, voice lowered to a conspiratorial whisper, a glimmer of triumph brightening his eyes. "Let me show you the truth, or suffer the fate of ignorance." And as his words lingered in the thick air, each syllable a tightening noose, I realized that we were standing on the precipice of discovery, a revelation that threatened to rip our foundations apart. And with it, I could see Clara's heart tremble beneath the storm. "What if you both are fated to walk this path?" He taunted, a sinister glee dancing behind his eyes. "What if I tell you that you're not as separate as you thought? Your fates are entwined, and by the end of this night, you will not escape unscathed." The knot of fear twisted tighter around my heart as I exchanged bewildered glances with Clara. The tempest that lingered outside reflected the turmoil swirling within. How deeply woven were our lives, and could we ever truly break free? As the winds howled and a final flash flickered, quaking the very ground beneath us, I realized we were on the cusp of confrontation, a confrontation not just with the man before us, but with layers of truths long trapped within our souls. And just like that, the storm became more than an external force. It transformed into a harbinger of chaos, promising unimaginable revelations in the wake of the unraveling. The air hung heavy with unresolved tension, stealing the breath from my lungs as the man's words echoed in the dimly lit space. I could sense Clara beside me, a fragile silhouette of uncertainty, her presence both grounding and alarming. The waitress's fiery defiance felt like a flickering candle in the swirling tempest of revelation, and her stare was a question that traced through the cluttered corridors of our shared confusion. "Fate," Clara breathed, her voice breaking through the quiet chaos. It was a plea for clarity, a desperate reach for something to hold on to amidst the whirlwind of possibilities, and I could feel the tremor in her fingertips intertwining with mine, a heartbeat away from unraveling. "Yes," he snarled with a twisted grin. "Fate is not a choice, but a tether, an unyielding bond pulling you together through the darkness. Listen closely, your past is whispering to you." I couldn't let him manipulate the narrative any longer. "Clara isn't a puppet to your machinations. Stop trying to confuse us." My own words sounded hollow as I spat them out, desperation creeping up like a crawling vine, wrapping itself tighter around my heart. Clara needed to feel safe, to cling to her own agency. With a flick of my wrist, I pushed aside the cascade of doubts crowding my mind. "We'll face whatever truth lies ahead. Together," I added, attempting to draw some semblance of strength into my voice, though inside, the tremors threatened to collapse my resolve. The man studied me, his expression morphing into a mockery of understanding. There's the spirit. But can you truly face the tempest of what binds you without risking everything?" He straightened, his presence formidable, and for a fleeting moment, the flickering candlelight cast long shadows across the diner, exaggerating his features into something monstrous. "Perhaps it's time you both face the shadows lurking in your past. Let us unlearn your illusions." "Stop," Clara interjected, stepping forward despite the brewing storm within her. "What do you want from us?" Her voice shook, yet it held an undertone of steely resolve, as if she was finally beginning to reclaim the strings of her own narrative. "I want to guide you to the heart of suffering, a conduit of truth. Sometimes, the truth hurts more than ignorance," he replied, a disturbing calmness washing over him. Clara turned to me, her eyes wide with both fear and a budding determination. "I need to understand," she whispered, the weight of her words grounding me more than the storm swirling around us. We exchanged a glance, and something unspoken sparked between us, a silent agreement that we could not let him dictate the rhythm of our heartbeats any longer. Together we faced the man standing in the shadows, a puppeteer who reveled in the fear that radiated from us. Yet even amidst this newfound courage, dread coiled deeper inside my chest, whispering that we were on the brink of something we might not fully be prepared to confront. "Just tell us the truth," I demanded, my voice a shaky whisper filled with urgency. "Very well," he said, shifting slightly, his eyes narrowing, the stage set for a tale drenched in darkness. "It begins long before either of you knew. Clara, your roots dig deep into a soil rich with secrets. Your family, they didn't just flee from the past. They forged paths wrapped in lies to protect you. And you, my friend, he shifted focus toward me. You were always woven into that fabric, an integral thread. Clara's breath hitched, and I felt my heart sink. What do you mean? She pressed, her hands trembling as if bracing for a storm of disbelief. Think back, he whispered, drawing closer, his ominous presence suffocating. The whispers of betrayal, artifacts buried beneath dusty memories, sights you may have brushed against but never acknowledged. The truth isn't always what it seems. Sometimes fear casts shadows that make the reality unbearable. The waitress, watching us like a guardian angel, stepped forward again. You don't have to listen to him, she urged gently, her eyes imploring us to find strength. Believe in your power to shape your own destiny. But the man's voice sliced through the air again. His words dripped with venom. You think the waitress can save you? She's merely an innocent amidst a storm she doesn't understand. You cannot see how intertwined your fates truly are. You're not just bound by the past. There is something in your blood that ties you together even now. Chilled to the bone, I felt the ground beneath me shift. Clara's face paled as the implications settled, each revelation tightening its grip around our throats, as if constricting the very air we breathed. In that moment, I wanted to protect her from whatever unspeakable truth he might unveil. But a deeper part of me knew there was no retreating, only the abyss of understanding lay ahead. The waitress shot a look at me, and in it, I saw her own fears and hidden stories, the weight of her past projecting onto the walls of this suffocating space. You two are stronger than this, she urged. You must fight against the darkness that's trying to claim you. Yet as I stared at Clara, my heart wrestled with fierce determination and spiraling dread. We'll face this together, I repeated, almost pleading with the universe to let it be true. Very well, he said, the flickering candle flames illuminating the madness dancing in his eyes. Let us see how deep the shadows go. How much are you willing to sacrifice to uncover your intertwined truths? And before I could respond, a loud crash thundered outside, an echo of the storm that surged back into life, violent and unforgiving. The door swung open, a gust of wind sweeping through the diner like a harbinger of chaos. And at that moment, I turned back to Clara, seeing her veil of fear lifting ever so slightly. But then, in the haze of confusion, something broke inside me. I remembered the faintest whisper from my childhood, a name I had buried under years of hurt. Clara, what if I've been searching for something more than just connection? I stammered, the implications of my own words crashing against the walls of my mind like waves against a rocky shore. The man's laughter rang out, a sonorous mockery against the roar of the storm. Ah, remember who you truly are, and you may find your destiny tied to hers. Let it unfold before you. The candlelight flickered precariously as feelings of dread and longing gripped at my soul. If Clara and I were entangled, how far would our paths extend? Would the intertwined truths be a beacon of hope, or would they consume us worse than the storm raging outside? My last thoughts clashed with the tempest outside, settling into a realization I dreaded to face. Unraveling our shared stories may unleash something far more consequential than we were willing to handle. A truth that could carve our fates in ways we weren't yet prepared to explore. And with the doorway wide open amidst the howling gale, the boundaries between our pasts and our present dissolved, pulling us toward a precipice of uncertainty, a truth that waited, glistening and shadowy, just beyond the veil. The storm outside raged on, a tempest that reflected the maelstrom of emotions swirling within me. The darkness pressed in around us, and, as the man laughed at our uncertainty, I felt the weight of shattered lives, untold stories, and whispered truths hanging in the air. Clara's hand was still tightly clasped in mine, and in that grasp, I felt her quivering resolve. For the first time, it dawned on me that our connection was more than chance. It was the universe pulling two lost souls together, all the wrong turns leading us straight to this pivotal moment of reckoning. Clara, I said, my voice barely rising above the roar of the storm. Whatever he thinks he knows, we are the authors of our own narrative. We can write our story, not him. I felt the flutter of hope rising in the air between us, but it was tethered to the shadows lurking just beyond our shared courage. The man's laughter faltered for a moment, an unsettling smile flickering at the edges of his lips. Ah, how naive you are. Do you think you can escape the past? I promise you, it's not a matter of choice, it's a matter of fate. Fate can be rewritten, I replied defiantly, my voice steadying. You don't get to dictate who we are anymore. You fed on our fear for too long. Clara nodded, hardening her expression, the spark of a warrior ignited in her eyes. She was not just a victim, she was a fighter, and together, we were much stronger. Fighting shadows won't erase what lies beneath, he retorted, stepping closer, anger simmering just beneath the surface. You cling to bravado while all I see is fear. I took a step forward, forcing my will against the encroaching dread. What if we don't fear you anymore? What if we face the truth head-on, no matter how hard it may be? There was a moment of stillness broken only by the howl of the wind. Clara squeezed my hand tighter, a signal of solidarity that rose through the storm's chaos. With a voice that trembled, she spoke. I grew up believing I was defined by your shadow. But the truth is more than that. My life is not negotiable, it's mine. The storm seemed to quiet for just a heartbeat, as if it too were waiting to see how this confrontation would play out. The man sneered, eyes narrowing. Do you think declarations will change anything? You still can't escape the sickness of your origins. I stepped even closer, defiance coursing through my veins. You underestimate the strength of people who are finally fighting back. You are not our chains. You are the catalyst for our liberation. The waitress, emboldened by our rising resolve, stepped forward as well. You may have cast long shadows, but they've illuminated a path for us. Clara deserves to know her own story, unfiltered and untainted by your lies. We all do. His expression twisted the anger that had been a mask for his insecurity. This brave little gathering won't save you when the truth is revealed, he snapped, but his bravado held an edge of uncertainty. Then reveal it, I challenged, the weight of the moment crashing down around us, the air heavy with the electricity of confrontation. You want the truth to emerge? Let us expose whatever darkness is hiding in the shadows. Clara trembled beside me. I choose to face my past, she said, her voice unwavering. I want to be dictated by your twisted version of reality. A flicker of realization crossed the man's face, an almost imperceptible hesitation. You're making a grave mistake, both of you. Maybe, I replied, my heart racing, but it's a mistake we've chosen. One we deserve. The storm thundered, as if echoing our resolve, and suddenly the air grew thick with tension. I held my breath as I realized we had pushed him too far. The power of his dominance began to slip, and the truth shimmered in the distance, sharp-edged and undeniably real. Very well, he said at last, a pained edge to his laughter. Let the truth out then, a truth you may regret. And all at once, the air shifted. The reality around us ebbed, twisted by the power of his words, a vortex of memories spiraling forth. Each moment began to pulse with vividness moments. Of pain, of betrayal, of futures unrealized. I felt the stories of all we were and all we had been intertwining like wildfire, a mix of memories that felt both alien and familiar. I saw Clara's face twist with confusion, a reflection of anguish cloaked in dignity. What? She barely managed, eyes brimming with unshed tears. In that instant, the past bared its teeth, haunted shades dancing in the edges of reality. I realized he wasn't just revealing her history. He was opening the door to every secret we had buried within us. But instead of recoiling, Clara stood firm, the ember of who she was sparking into a flame that threatened to illuminate the whole room. Show me, she demanded, her voice ringing clear and true, unwavering against the swirling shadows. Suddenly, images flooded the room, the shattering truth of lives entwined in betrayal, silhouetted against the backdrop of a stormy horizon. Clara's family, their choices, the dark truths hidden beneath the surface, echoed through every memory as each piece of her past intertwined with threads of my own, a horrifying realization that sunk its claws into my heart. Enough, I yelled, the tumult threatening to engulf us. This is not the end. Despite filled with fear, we will carve our own path. Clara, we will find our truth, side by side. And then the whirlwind ceased, silence dropping like a curtain, and through it I saw Clara's eyes burning bright, the first flicker of hope within darkness. A truth that was not his to own, nor only theirs, but one we would weave together, hand in hand. A shared future, unblemished by the past, one filled with promise. I don't need your dark interpretations or your slips of reason, Clara called out, her voice breaking the swirl of memories clinging heavily. I choose to rewrite my story, now and forever. We are not defined by you. In that moment, the man recoiled, as if struck. The air crackled with the volatility of the storm, and yet the sound of my heartbeat flooded my ears like thunder rolling across the sky. There was a fire in Clara's eyes, one that couldn't be extinguished by his darkness. I took a step closer, pulling her hand into mine, standing as a unified force. Together, we will forge ahead, I said, my heart steady in the midst of uncertainty, allowing the warmth of courage to replace the despair that had threatened to envelop us. The shadows shifted, seeming less daunting now, the echoes of the past distorting into mere whispers. The truth was slipping from his grasp, and deep in that moment of inevitability, I saw the dawn breaking on the horizon, the promise of liberation breaking free from thorns of twisted fate. Breathe in the knowledge of who you both truly are, he hissed, his voice barely a whisper, deflated as victory slipped through his hands. Yet there was a begrudging respect etched in his features. You may have weathered the storm together, but the tides are always changing. Let them change, Clara replied fiercely, lifting her chin higher, the remains of fear evaporating in the wake of her newfound resolve. I will create my own future. I won't back down. As the storm shifted outside, finally releasing its grip, dawning real truths became tangible within each heartbeat, remnants of pain mixed with empowerment. Clara and I stood strong amid the chaos, entwined through all the struggles and secrets, the intersecting legacies that would not haunt us anymore. And finally, with our hands braced together, I realized our journey was not just about uncovering dark truths, but embracing the light that flowed unyieldingly through love and courage. No longer would we be mere puppets in a wicked game, nor victims shackled by the weight of another's sins. As the storm receded, I turned to Clara, her face illuminated by the soft glow that now dominated the horizon. The world was still trembling, echoes of upheaval lingering in the air, but with every heartbeat, hope blossomed anew, casting a radiant light through the obscure. I choose us, I murmured, the sincerity piercing through the remnants of the storm like clarity emerging amidst the chaos. Together, we will confront whatever may come. And in that moment, as dawn broke across the sky, painting it in magnificent hues of warmth, I knew our story was finally ours to tell, a tale of healing, resilience, and a new beginning that had always lived just beyond the shadows. With hearts intertwined and souls ignited, we took a step into the unveiling light, where the past faded and the promise of tomorrows awaited. Together, we would rise. Together, we would fight. Together, we would create our truth. It was in that warmth, amid the rebirth of hope, that I realized after the storm, we were not only alive, but finally free to embrace the world of our dreams.